This week on the Peas, Gerald, I'm going to be playing Deep Undercover as a guy who likes movies. Get ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a brand new episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. Gerald, of course, is here with you, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. And over on the other side, deep, stealth-like undercover is my co-host, Nicholas, in the shadows. How are you, buddy? Don't blow your cover. How you doing?
Now, I'll have you know that your whole congestion fiasco that ruined the first take totally ruined my nitro pour of the Guinness that I have in the two-piece pint glass here. Look at that. Ooh, you can see M. Night Shyamalan through it, Gerald.
It's got the green
wait,
screen
if we move
because
it over
it's...
here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, it's even better. Oh, that's... Oh.
M. Night floating in the Guinness there. Well, I'm
What's up,
sorry.
baby?
I messed up your can popping
Totally
thing in the middle
ruined
of the... But yeah, what anyway.
Look at me.
Nick
I got
is
a
having
Guinness. I got like rainbow
Yeah.
Band-Aids on my finger here. It's all good. Like I tried to slice the tip of my finger off with a mandolin yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Because I just wanted a little excitement in my life, Gerald. And I'm not deep undercover, so I don't know what it's like to get my heart racing unless I'm literally maiming myself in the kitchen.
That's fair. Nick's having a Guinness, and he's going to be talking about movies tonight. Now, look, we didn't go out to the theater this week. We let the patrons pick a film for us, and it was one that neither of us had ever seen. We came to that realization as we were talking about it, but it's 1992's Deep Cover, starring Mr. Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum. Never saw it. Nick, you never saw it either, right? You confirm that? Yeah.
I confirm nothing for you.
First time
I
watch
confirmed
for both of
everything
us.
in the first take. I already did my work for the evening. Like I didn't sign up for multiple takes here. This is
For the whole evening or just for the opening? Oh, my God. All right, well,
we already did a whole opening. Like I'm only contracted for one podcast opening a
that's
week.
fair.
Like you promised me. Like it's in the contract, buddy. Read the fine print. Dan, I need a raise now.
You're right. I apologize for trying to make you do double duty there. Let's see what Nick cares about this week in movie news, guys, as we head over and spill the old peas.
Oh no, not the peas! Not the peas! Ah! Ah!
I got to give him that beautiful sound drop whenever I
So professional. I saw so professional this whole operation tonight.
Yeah, so far we're on a roll.
We're on a roller coaster ride to the moon, baby.
Here we go, Nick. I'm going to start with this one. This story came out. Actually, I meant to talk about it last week, and I forgot to bring it up to you. Good Will Hunting director Gus Van Sant is going to reunite with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in a film called Killing Gawker. The movie's going to star Affleck as Hulk Hogan, and it's going to follow the lawsuit that Hogan filed against Gawker for publishing the sex tape of him. Thoughts on Affleck as the Hulkster, brother?
Well, you know something, brother. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that the whole time.
This is crazy, though, right? But do you see this? Can you see this?
Affleck as Hogan? Like, Affleck as Hogan is weird. I don't know. So Affleck has to, we know Affleck gained like a whole bunch of muscle mass and everything when he was doing Batman in the DC movie, right? So he gained a whole bunch of muscle mass, but he doesn't have all that muscle mass anymore. Maybe he looks like a melted candle, like Hulk Hogan looks like when he takes his shirt off nowadays, or like anytime in a wrestling ring in like the 2010s forward.
When was that Gawker scandal?
That was in the 2010s, I thought, wasn't it? That
Yeah,
wasn't anything that was like way back in the day. That was something that was more
that's fairly recent.
That was something that was more recent, I thought. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know. Well, let me tell you something, Mean Gene. Affleck better do a great job of playing the Hulkster. He better take his vitamins and say his prayers and all that nonsense and not put his dick in his wife.
Wait, what?
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 That was that whole thing.
He's only had one sip of Guinness, guys. I don't know.
It was a Hulk Hogan sex tape, but he like banged the guy that runs Gawker's wife or something, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah. Wasn't it Bubba the Love Sponge? Wasn't it like that? Isn't that the whole thing? Bubba the Love Sponge, isn't that it?
I don't know, brother.
I might be conflating Hulk Hogan sex conspiracies in my head because there's probably way more than one of them. I think that's it, though. I think it's like the Bubba the Love Sponge thing where Hulk Hogan like banged his wife and like Bubba the Love Sponge was like the cuck in the porn videos, just watching Hulk Hogan pow his wife. and then They recorded a
Oh
tape of it
man.
and then it got released or something like that. At least
Yeah, sure.
this is my vague recollection of it.
Wow.
So I don't know who's playing. Is
Well,
Matt Damon playing Bubba the Love Sponge?
that would be the best. I don't know, man. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about Iron Claw last year, and they had that actor portraying Ric Flair. I just don't. I feel like this is just going to be a him doing an impersonation. You know what I mean? It's going to be hard. It's hard to pull off these larger than life characters, and I feel like that's what Hulk Hogan is. And I just don't know, man. I mean, if it's a behind closed doors kind of retelling, and it's not like him in the wrestling arena and his
Yeah, this was.
personality.
I'm pretty sure this was not a terribly long time ago. Like it was, because I mean it was Gawker, right? Gawker is like
Yeah.
a trash website or whatever. So it's not like it was 30 years ago or something like that back in his prime. I'm pretty sure this is after he retired from in-ring competition. So we shouldn't have to see Affleck running the ropes and doing the big leg drop and hulking up and super kicking people and all the other. Hulk Hogan didn't super kick people. He couldn't get his leg that high, let's be honest. Body slamming people. You know how it is.
I can't wait to see who Damon plays. It's gonna be good. Gus Van Sant's a great director. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. I just feel like
This is
it
the
could
most
end up.
interesting sounding project ever.
Yeah, it could
Here's
be like a living meme, So I don't know.
here's my thing about it, okay? I'm a wrestling fan. I'm a huge wrestling fan. But is anybody really lining up to see a movie about, like, I know Hemsworth was supposed to play Hogan. I think he did. Did they ever film that Hulk Hogan biopic that Hemsworth was supposed to play Hulk Hogan
No,
in, where it was him? Did they ever film that?
no. At least not that it was released.
I
No.
don't know. Well, I mean, it was never. I mean, obviously we haven't seen it yet, but I mean, that was years and years ago that he was supposed to play Hogan in a biopic. But I don't know if that thing is just languishing in development hell, or if they keep giving Hogan passes at the script to get the details right, but he changes his story every 5 seconds. So it's
Sure,
like
sure.
he writes one version of it, and then the next day he wakes up and he's like, "No, wait, that never happened. That didn't happen," or whatever. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird poll. I like Van Zant. I like Affleck. I like Damon. But is this a story that anybody really cares to even know? Like Hulk Hogan's a filthy, disgusting scumbag. Like, does anybody really?
I know.
Does anybody really like light
It's
it
a
up to
weird.
be like, ooh?
It's a weird swing all around. I
I
don't
want to
know.
see
I'll be
Affleck
interested,
as Hogan pretend to plow someone else's wife, and then yeah.
and I hope it's Matt Damon's for somehow.
I hope
Somehow.
is Matt Damon playing Bubba the Love Sponge's wife? Is that?
Please, please. That would make the most sense.
I
This
don't know
one,
who wants to see this. Who
I
wants
don't
to
either.
see this movie?
It's gonna be weird. This one got a little under my skin, man. I don't. I've been thinking about this for a few days now. Joaquin Phoenix has dropped out of the Todd Haynes gay romance film 5 days before production was set to begin. I did some read. Did you hear about this, by the way? Prior to
No.
this,
No, what is
I
this?
did. I did some reading on it. Todd Haynes is a very respected filmmaker in Hollywood. He just did May December last year, and Joaquin Phoenix brought him this project a couple of years ago. He said, "Hey, I want you to direct this. I'm going to be in it. We'll cast, the other lead, whatever."
Okay.
And so it's been kind of ruminating between the two of them for a couple of years. And anyway, it was Haynes' next film, and they were about to start production on it this week. And with no warning and no real explanation, Joaquin Phoenix dropped out. Now, in reading about it, what really sucks about this whole story is that the financing that the producers gave to the film and to the project to get the production going was all contingent upon Joaquin Phoenix starring in the film.
Right.
Without him in the film, several of the financiers are also backing out of the project. They're not going to let them recast it, in other words. That's A. B is there was already sets built. There were like 100 crew members that were put out of work with no notice that were literally getting ready to start the production. The whole thing just stinks to me. I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about an A-lister like Joaquin doing something like this? Do you think it's going to come out that there's maybe a legitimate reason why he did it? Because right now he's been silent. We haven't heard from him.
If I'm Phoenix, I'm putting the PR team out there to be like, this is why I had to drop out, because putting he's got money. He's got enough money to sleep on top of a giant pile of money until he dies. Okay, those crew people don't. All those people that got put out of work, like that's redonk. Like that's when they announced the ridiculous. I know we talked about it on Spill the Peas a couple weeks ago. Downey coming back to the MCU, but now it's been revealed he's getting what, like $80 million to come back and play Doctor Doom in these stupid Avengers movies. And it brings up this whole nonsense of striking and all that stuff that we just went through with the strikes and everything like that, where all these people were out of work. It smacks of irresponsibility just from a performer standpoint, that you, with no notice, pulled out of this film that also caused financing to be pulled and basically got all these crew people like furloughed, laid off, whatever you want to call it. Nothing for nothing. Like, I mean, Phoenix is good in some things. Like he's really good. Like, he's not a bad actor or anything like that. But there's just this is a terrible decision. Like, unless somebody died, like some literal terrible thing happened.
That's what I mean. If there was a legitimate reason with his health or whatever, but
why not announce that if that was a thing? Why be just like dead silent about it and cost all these people their livelihoods? I mean, I'm sure they'll be able to move on to other projects eventually, but in the meantime, it's like they had their schedule cleared for this and they were booked for this thing. They were booked for this gig. And so, like, I'm not like messing with people's livelihoods, man. Like that's a different level of, you know, something, brother. That's a different level of scumbag.
Yeah, this isn't the Gawker scandal we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's not cool, man. That's not cool.
There was rumors that he got cold feet because it's supposedly going to be an NC-17 or even higher rated film. So he maybe was uncomfortable with some of the gay sex scenes in the film. Obviously, he's a straight male, but you brought the project to him, so you had to have known that it was going to feature some type of gay romance. So I don't know if that's hearsay or whatever, but I heard that as well.
I'm gonna leave that one aside until, you know. But he brought the. I'm gonna discount that because presumably, if he brought the project to him and agreed to star in it initially, he was well aware of what it was going to require in terms of the performance. Unless, you know, it could be a thing where he wants to pull out of it because he wants to give a homosexual actor a chance to go for it. Like, it could be something like that. I don't know, but I mean, again, until we hear anything, all we can do is just sit here and throw darts at a dartboard and hopefully land on the right one. But I mean, still, like, no matter what the reason is, like I said, I still think screwing with people's livelihoods is ridiculous.
I think it definitely, if for no other reason, all the people involved in the production deserve some type of like explanation and closure to why they, you know, like you said, were basically laid off with no notice.
Or jump into your money bin, Scrooge McPhoenix, and start shelling out a few bucks to all these crew members you screwed over.
Do you think this hurts the Joker 2 at all? Comes out in October. That's Phoenix's next.
Nobody that's going to go see Joker 2 is going to give a fat solitary shit about this. So
this won't affect him, or affect that movie at the box office in any way. You don't think? Okay,
no.
All right, we'll see. We'll see. I think it sucks at the very least, and I am awaiting some type of further explanation. But we'll see what we get from that. This past weekend, Nick, Disney had their Disney 23 World Expo, where they always announce what's on the docket for the next year or two from the Walt Disney Company, Studios, Pixar, all that kind of stuff. A couple of highlights that came out of there I wanted to ask you about. They're doing a Toy Story 5. How deep are you into the Toy Story films? Have you seen all the way through 4?
No, I've only seen the first 3. I never went and saw Toy Story 4 because I'm not. Like, listen, I love the first 2. First 2 are absolute stone cold animation classics, masterpieces, whatever you want to call them. I do not rate 3 like a lot of people do. A lot of people lavish praise on it. I like it. I don't think it's a terrible movie or anything like that, but I just don't rate it. I think I would give it like maybe like a 7 or something, but a lot of people laud it as like this second coming or something. I don't think it's that. And so I didn't really care when Toy Story 4 got announced. I was just like, whatever, I don't care. I've kind of moved on from the franchise. So I care less that they're going to keep, listen, I'm going to caveat this right now for the listener out there being like, why they keep making, because they make money. They make money. Stop going to see them. If you don't want them to make any more, don't go see them, and then they won't make any more. End of story. Period. Every single thing ever that you ever the same thing with. I hate to branch this out into a larger argument, but remakes, don't go see them. They won't remake movies if you don't go see remakes.
If they don't work, then they won't do them.
Everything is financially driven in Hollywood. Everything.
That's accurate. Toy Story 5 is going to be the first film that features the toys going up against technology, electronics. There's a still image that they showed at D23, which is the first look at the new movie, and it has all the featured toys there. Woody, Buzz is there, Forky, which was introduced in Toy Story 4, and it's got Bonnie, the little girl that inherited all the toys, on her iPad, kind of ignoring the toys. So for those of us that have kids in that age range, it's an interesting angle to take. My kids are addicted to screens around this house, so it's an interesting angle to take. Another thing that people are pointing out about that still image, though, and I know you said you didn't see Toy Story 4, Nick, but at the end of Toy Story 4, it was a very emotional ending where Woody, who of course is the main character, voiced by Tom Hanks, of these films, decides to leave his group of toys to quote-unquote start his own life with little Bo Peep. And he goes off with her, and the rest of the toys stay where they are. And that's how Toy Story 4 ends, but he's in this image. He's back. So everybody's like, wait a second, what? Like, Woody's back? So I don't know. You're right about the money thing, but it's kind of like what we were talking about with Marvel, right? When you get into these multiverses and stuff, it's like, what matters narratively anymore? Nothing matters. Like, they can bring people back to life. They can put people in a different universe. Like, I don't know. I just guess the integrity and the storytelling is kind of lacking in these franchises, in my opinion.
Well, let me pitch the reverse at you.
Yeah.
Toy Story sequel without Woody.
Sure.
Everybody, so there's a bunch of people, I'm sure, on Twitter, because that's where it always is, up in arms because Woody is in this image, right?
Sure.
Guaranteed, and it'd probably be a bunch of the same people, because all these people do is live to bitch and complain about everything on Twitter. But there would be a whole different group of people, Gerald, and some of the same, I'm sure, who, if Woody wasn't in the picture, would complain that Woody wasn't in it.
Sure.
You can't win. I agree with you about like the suffering quality of narrative, everything. I agree with you completely about that, but I don't think you could win with this. Like I said, there'd be a whole different subset of people that'd be like, "Where's Woody? Why isn't Woody in the picture?" And then you have a whole bunch of people on Twitter being like, he walked off into the sunset at the end of the fourth movie."
Yeah.
But guaranteed. It's just you can't please. Is it possible to please anybody these days with anything?
No, it's really not. It's really not. So we're talking about Toy Story 5, and you mentioned that with the sequels and why they keep remaking them. Well, now we've got another remake, a live action remake, which is something they've been doing a lot of. Barry Jenkins has another Lion King coming out this year called Mufasa. But the first trailer and some of the initial images for the new Snow White live action film have been released. I shot the trailer link over to you to watch it before we recorded tonight. I am an absolute fanboy of Rachel Zegler. I love her. She's playing Snow White in the film, going to be doing all of her own singing in the film, and she's a great singer as well. There's one huge issue I have with this film in watching the trailer, but I want to hear what you thought of this live action, what we've seen so far. Is this something you would see? Or... it also should be noted that Snow White was the first ever feature animated release for Disney. Yep. And there's something kind of special about that finally being retold. What do you think about this trailer? What do you think?
So when you said one big problem, did you really mean 7 little problems?
Well, no. You want to tell you my one big problem?
Good. No, I want to hear it.
My one big problem is somewhat superficial, but Gal Gadot is the evil queen here, and I'm supposed to believe that she would be jealous or envious of any other woman. And she's not ugly in the trailer. I mean, she's Gal Gadot. She's Wonder Woman. You know what I mean?
No, I feel you there.
That's like, we gotta get that unbelievable.
Magic mirror checked. We gotta get that magic mirror check, because that magic mirror is like busted as hell if it's not.
Yeah.
If it's not showing, just flashing back pictures of Wonder Woman at her, being like, "Nah, you good, you got this."
But what about
this?
Fam. What about the CG of the dwarves though?
No, the dwarves look awful, dude. The dwarves look they
You
literally
think they look that bad? I don't. Everybody's saying
they
that, but when I
look
watched it initially, I didn't
awful.
think that.
Holy cow. I mean,
Uh,
we've seen so many of these live action Disney remakes that are just they're basically they're literally still cartoons because there's so much CG in them. It's just realistic, photorealistic CG. Same thing with The Lion King. I challenge anybody to tell me that the Lion King remake, the one that they did a couple years ago, and this new one coming out, tell me that they're not animated films still. They're
yeah.
photorealistically CGI animated, but they're still animated films. There's nothing live action about them. This, I mean, literally, that's what that scene looks like when she's dancing around with all the dwarves and stuff. Literally,
Yeah.
nothing in that scene looks real except for her. She's the only thing about it that looks real. The dwarves look like they are supposed to look in
Sure.
they look like but the problem is like when you rip those characters out of animation and you put them into a live action setting, they just look silly. Like they just
But
don't look. And then
why?
it begs the question of why do this?
Why didn't you hire little people to actually be in the film?
Well, because Peter Dinklage got mad that they were going to hire dwarves to play dwarves in the film.
Did he really? I
Because
didn't hear that.
yeah, no, I remember that happening. That was a big
Oh,
thing
okay.
because he's like the only roles out there for little people are as playing little people, and he was pissed about it. So instead of casting little people to play the dwarves in the film, which these are not meant to be like real person. They're meant to be like fantasy creatures and everything, whatever. Disney also could have gone the route of doing like a forced perspective thing, like a Lord of the Rings. Granted, that's a lot trickier to shoot, but they could have gone that kind of way to cast normal sized people as the dwarves and then shrunk them down or whatever.
Sure, sure.
I'm mystified by the
Has there been any Disney remake that you've seen that you enjoyed?
God.
Did you like Beauty and the Beast with them?
Not really. It was okay. Not
Mommy
really.
was-
Like it was. Eh.
Me
The
too.
problem with this, a lot of the problem I have with these live action remakes and stuff is not, none of them are a patch on the original. The Jungle Book I like. Pete's Dragon was actually really good because it was basically complete. If you've ever seen the original Pete's Dragon movie, it's this whacked out like drug induced nightmare from the 70s. Like it's wild and wacky. It's crazy. It's really
Yeah.
good. I watched it growing up all the time. I really really love that movie. But they basically just took the concept of a dude named Pete as a dragon and they just nothing else about the movie was the same. And like that one was really good. The Jungle Book was good, even though again
Yeah.
cartoon. Like literally the only thing real about it was the kid. But they've just progressively like the Lion King was the most soulless, terrible.
good.
It was awful. It was so bloody, like god awful. And Aladdin was like okay. Like a lot of these films is like they're just okay. They're like a 6 or a 7. Like you don't really remember them that fine. You leave the theater, you're like, yeah, well, okay, it was fine. But these, I'm going to caveat this for you, G. I don't really feel like these movies are for us. They're not for
They're
the
not.
people that grew up watching the animated versions and have come to treasure them. These are for like new audiences, maybe because there's a subset of people out there, G, that just won't touch animation. I saw your Adventure Time shirt and I was like thinking animation. I went right to it. I
Yeah.
think there's just a subset of people out there that just don't like animation, period, and they won't give anything animated a chance. And
Sure.
maybe this is supposed to, or maybe it's supposed to market to families. Maybe it's supposed to market to little kids who, Disney knows parents will take little kids to see this kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But none of name me one to pitch the question back at you. Name me one of these Disney live action remakes that's really been blow out of the water, like better than the OG.
None. None of them have lived up to, honestly, even close to the OGs, in my opinion. I mean, there's been bits and pieces of a handful that I've enjoyed. Like I loved Haley Bailey and The Little Mermaid last year, and I thought that was a valiant effort at a live action remake. Some of that was laughable too, and at the end of the day, it was just average. And that's kind of what you're saying is that some of them are okay, and then some of them are like, why did you guys do this? Aside from the money making aspect that we already talked about, but yeah, none of them, in my opinion, have been anywhere close. But to that point, somebody goes and sees Snow White next year, right? And maybe they're a big fan of Rachel Zegler, and they go see it and they never saw the animated film from the 40s, and they won't watch animation from the 40s because it doesn't do it for them,
Yep.
And maybe that's their Snow White, you know what I mean? Maybe they love it, and maybe they, give it a 10 out of 10, and they don't know that original, and that original is not being always kind of put up in comparison against these things, which that's the problem that people like you and I run into, because we're always going to know what it's based on and what it's trying to capture.
I think it's
And
impossible to avoid
it just hasn't done it.
if you've grown up with that kind of thing like we have, and even like the generations before us did. So I maintain. I mean, Disney doesn't care whose dollars they get in those box office coffers.
Yeah.
Let me make that clear. But we're not really the audience for it. We're definitely not the audience for it. Like you, maybe because you got younger kids, like they want you to take the younger kids to see it, something like that. And you're exactly right. Like it could be somebody that watches it and is like, oh, that's my Snow White or whatever. But I mean, generally speaking, though, I mean, the problem with all of these live action remakes is that none of them are really worth it. None of them, like at the end of the day, you walk out of the theater, especially for anybody out there, and listeners, let me know if I'm wrong about this. Like, chime in on social media for us. But I mean, with these Disney live action remakes and stuff like that, like you walk out of the theater, and what's the first thing you probably think to yourself? Well, I like the animated one better. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, like Aladdin, like it wasn't a terrible film or anything like that. Like Will Smith was fine, but I mean, again, we all grew up with Robin Williams as the genie.
I know.
You know, like things like that.
You
like you just can't.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things are just so ingrained as part of us, as part of our childhoods, as part of growing up and stuff like that. It's impossible to replace that kind of feeling. I know we talked about rubbing the nostalgia boner when we talked about Deadpool and Wolverine, but I feel like that's a lot of the reason why maybe we can't enjoy some of these live action remakes the way that we enjoy a Deadpool and Wolverine that just throws everything in the kitchen sink at us to rub that boner, is because in these live action remakes, it's actually not doing that. Like it's cashing in on it's cashing in on you swiping the card to buy the ticket, but it's not making the same movie. A lot of these movies are different in like fundamentally in just one or two different ways, or like just different things about them. Like again, the Lion King remake, to go back to that, they take all the cartoonish fun expressions off of the animals' faces and just make them photorealistic. So you've got like the ridiculous scene of Mufasa being killed with the baby cat Simba just being like, no, and like they have no emotionality or expression to their faces. So it completely kills, it absolutely destroys the dramatic tension of the scene. Well, I mean, like stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird, man. It's weird.
Let's see. I'll see Rachel Zegler dancing around in Snow White, though. I'm going to take my kids to see it next year, and I'm hopeful. I mean, the CGI was a little. I don't know.
If you're going to put it on the schedule, you're going to make me see it. But unless you put it on the schedule, no, I will not be.
Oh boy, maybe I'll have to then. All right, so let's do a brief segment this week, so we don't run over, so we can get into our deep cover discussion. But let's go ahead and grab a question and see what the fans had to ask us in one big question, Nick.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
All right, Nicholas, what do you got for us, man? You said you were over on Discord. You're gonna grab a question. We'll just answer that bad.
I'm just worried that you're gonna die. I'm really concerned that you're dying here.
One big question: is Gerald going to die on tonight's episode? Oh man. No, I'll be fine.
All right, fine. I gotta remove the glasses because I can't see.
Yeah, no glasses guy.
Because man, oh man, I can't. The problem is I can't read anymore.
What?
I don't know why. I'm getting old to the point where I got to increase the text, the font size of my computer because I can't see.
I just did that on my phone
anymore.
I just did it on my phone too.
I can't see the small fonts and things like that anymore. Drew Howell wants to know. I need to know in detail whether you're Team Pirate or Team Ninja.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know what that has anything to do with deep cover or not. I have no clue.
I'd be Team Pirate, I guess. I mean, pirate hookers are hot, man.
I gotta be Team Ninja just to shout out Lucinda Dickey and Ninja 3: The Domination.
Okay.
Goddess, absolute goddess.
Wow,
Brad wants to know where our Borderlands review is.
Never.
Borderlands rocking and rolling that 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Never is where it is. Oh,
man,
I
alive.
wouldn't see that with. Who asked that? Brad, didn't he? Was that Brad? Who asked for that?
Brad wanted Brad because of course it's a Brad movie. It's definitely a Brad movie.
No.
Julio wants to know if this is the Blue Beetle of the Deep Throat universe.
Wow.
Woo.
Yeah, man.
Train goes into the tunnel. Let me pitch you this one from I love all of our I love our friends. I love our listeners. I love everybody out there. You guys are all amazing. Chrissy, and he wants to know, Gerald, what would you do if someone pissed on your shoes? Because that happens in this movie. Someone pisses on Lawrence Fishburne's shoes.
Somebody pissed on my shoes. What would
deliberately, like walked towards you and then just straight up leaked all over them shoes?
I'm not a violent guy, so I would probably be in shock, but I would probably take the shoes off and throw it at him, I guess. That's going to be my answer. What about you?
I just wanted to leave that one hang out there for just a second.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's, off the top
Gerald,
of my head.
I want to be in the bathroom where you are groping at your really wet, pissy shoes to get them off of your feet to throw them at somebody.
Thank you, Yanni.
I'm not a violent person either, but I'm gonna swing one. If somebody just deliberately whips it out and takes a leak on my shoes, I'm probably. I mean, that said, I've been drinking with friends before over the years, and I'm sure somebody's inadvertently peed on my shoes more than once. So, but if somebody deliberately does it, no, I'm not gonna try to fumble with my pissy shoes to throw one at them. No, I'm gonna.
All right, maybe that was
them.
the wrong. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for the questions this week, guys. We didn't have a ton of time to spend on it, but we do appreciate it, the feedback every week in one big question. Now, patron of the show, Jason, also known as Nerdrovert, threw us Deep Cover from 1992. That's what the wheel landed on last week. Nick and I had never seen it. First time watch for both of us, and we're going to give you our thoughts. This will be a spoiler review because we're just going to talk about it. It's 30 years old at this point, so we're not going to worry about spoilers. Let's go ahead and give our scores out of 10, Nick. We like to do it every episode. We haven't discussed it with each other. It's what we call the early score reveal.
Damn it! This always happens. I think I'm going to score, and then I never score. It's not fair.
All right.
Fair.
Nicholas.
Are you alive?
Deep cover. Here we go. You ready?
No. 3, 2, 1, go. Ha-ha! See, I tricked you. So 7 from G and a 6 from me. Gerald, what's that add up to? What is it?
13, so a 6.5.
Ooh, wow,
like
man.
that.
You guys remember a long time ago when Gerald couldn't do basic math? You remember back in the early days of the show when Gerald just didn't know what math was?
This show has just dramatically improved my math skills. Let's take a promo break, and when we come back, we will get into a full spoiler-filled discussion on Deep Cover. Dan, run that promo, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, we're going to be discussing 1992's Deep Cover. It stars Mr. Lawrence Fishburne, Jeff Goldblum, and a host of others. I did recognize a couple of the faces, but I couldn't really remember. I couldn't really place where I had seen them before. So this is a crime thriller kind of cop drama in the early 90s, directed by Bill Duke. Lawrence Fishburne kind of getting his career really popping in the late 80s, early 90s. And I made that joke at the top about The Matrix, which might be possibly his best known role, which came 7 years after this. A 6 from Nick, a 7 from me. So we're close to eye this week. But Nick, general thoughts or whatever you want to say to get us started here on Deep Cover. What do you think, man?
I mean, it's not the most perfect movie. I've got problems with the third act especially, but I think it's enjoyable enough. For what it is, going all the way through it. I like that it kind of transitions as it goes from the first, second through the third act. It kind of transitions into more of a commentary about class. And it kind of drifts away. Like at the early stages when he's kind of low level Deep Cover, just pretending to be like a low-level drug dealer, it's a lot more of a commentary on racism. And then as it kind of drifts through that, it becomes more of a commentary on class. I really, really did like that aspect of it. I think Fishburne's great in this. Somebody I think it was actually Jason maybe, asked our top 3 Lawrence Fishburne performances. I would have to think this would have to be close to that list, if not on it. I mean, he's really, really good here. And the great thing is he is able to play a great range in this movie of being this kind of emotional, like tormented, clean as a whistle cop who's then going undercover, but then he's getting a little taste of that power and everything, and it kind of starts to corrupt him a little bit, maybe. So I think he's really, really good in this. Goldblum is Is there a movie where Jeff Goldblum is
Man.
not just whacked out of his mind?
Yeah, he's really showing up in this movie. I mean, he's doing some crazy
My
acting.
dude has never met a bit of scenery he did not love to chew. I mean, he's not bad in this movie by any means, but man, he dials it up to 11 in some of this movie. I mean, I don't think it was bad. Like I said, I really enjoyed some aspects of it. I don't think it's there in terms of the writing all the way through. I think, especially like I said in the third act, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I want to get your general thoughts on this one as well, because like I said, I had a decent enough time with it. It was an enjoyable enough watch. Probably nothing I would ever revisit, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I mean, you know, for me, the kind of critiques of it are somewhat paper thin in their surface level. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a good movie, and to see Lawrence Fishburne kind of just own this role, I thought was really cool. I really did like the kind of hierarchy of his character too, John, in the film.
Yep.
Like he does kind of go from like what you said, that low level kind of grunt work that he's doing. Even when he starts out as a cop, you could kind of tell he was like a street cop. He didn't really have any notoriety in the force yet. And that kind of translates over to the street undercover life that he takes on. But as the film goes on, it's a very interesting hierarchy where he does get corrupted a little bit and kind of, he's not doing the drugs per se, but he's kind of getting addicted to that power and that rise to fame and in that area of LA that they're in. And he's kind of becoming a bigwig in that drug kind of world. And he likes it. I mean, even when he's narrating, there's a couple times when he says he likes it, you know, and he ends up going to lengths like killing a guy. You know, I mean, this is a clean cop that, you know, is trying to rid the streets of these drugs that essentially killed his father and kind of broke his home life. And so he does have a backstory that's connected to what his character is doing in the film.
Yeah.
This all hinges on Lawrence Fishburne, in my opinion, and I thought it was a really good performance. Without a really great performance at the core, that like the one that we get here, it's not going to work. I mean, like you said, it's a sloppy screenplay. It's kind of cheesy at times with the dialogue and cliche, but again, it kind of matches with a lot of that 90s cop thriller kind of, you know, unrealistic kind of portrayal that we would get from a lot of the precincts and stuff in those 90s films. It's almost like the Naked Gun movies, but with a much more serious tone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just unrealistic at times. But, I mean, I liked it. You know, I think that the points that are being knocked off on it for me is because I'm not seeing it in the 90s. You know, I'm seeing it now for the first time. And it's definitely a time capsule film where, in other words, I bet if I had seen this in 1992, first of all, I would have been like 16 or 17. I would have fucking loved this thing. Like, this would have been like the banger, like greatest shit I'd ever seen. But just being so far removed from that era, it kind of plays its hand. Like, okay, this is a dated film. But it wasn't bad. It was a good watch. I enjoyed it. I love Goldblum. I love Fishburne. I just wish that narratively the script had been a little bit better and done them a little more favors along the way. And it, you know, I don't know what the ending. The last like 5 minutes, I was kind of like,
the whole ending of this movie. I get huge issues with the whole ending of this movie.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it when we get there and everything. But let me pitch something specifically to you, because everybody that knows me and knows my reviews of films well knows that one of my biggest pet peeves is characters narrating things that you can very easily see on the screen, or you should be able to see from character performances. This came out like right after Goodfellas, which everybody else in the world loves. I hate Goodfellas. I hate it for the exact reason I hate that aspect of this movie. The narration from his character. What did you think of the random voiceovers cutting in, giving his internal thoughts?
Well, first of all, I knew you were going to hate it. And 9 times out of 10, when I hear narration in a film, if it's one that we're discussing, I know that you're going to give it a knock. I think there's only been a couple times where you haven't spoken negatively about narration in general. And you just don't like that plot device. And I mean, I get it.
It depends on how it's used in a film. Like, not like this. This is not. I'm sorry. I hate this kind of narration in film, because all he's doing is narrating things that either A, you should be showing us, or B, we should be able to infer from his performance. Like, it's in a way just kind of sitting there like, in case audience, in case you didn't get it, let me just explain it to you on a platter so you get it.
I I think this is going to sound funny, but I think it didn't bother me as much because it was Lawrence Fishburne. Like I really like his
He
speaking
does
voice.
have a great
Like,
voice.
you
He
know, he
really
has a
does.
very poetic way of speaking, you know, similar to like a Morgan Freeman or Anthony Hopkins, where like, you know, they could narrate anything and I would like hearing it. So I think it didn't bother me for that reason, but I do feel like at the same time it was unnecessary. There's a couple times when he'll go to visit Jerry, the police captain that assigned him on the undercover,
Yeah.
and he'll go to visit him. And, you know, Jerry will give him a list of things to do or what he needs to change or whatever, and then he'll tell Jerry, "Okay, yes, sir," or whatever, and then he'll leave and he'll narrate and go, "Well, he was right. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that." And it's like, well, I mean, we know, dude. Like, we know you're doing that, or we're going to see that you did that when you
Well,
get
there
back
was
into the next scene.
one moment in particular that really stood out for me was when he was talking about he mentioned something about how everything was going right, and then all of a sudden everything went wrong, and then it goes into
Yeah.
the scene like the little dinner scene where Jeff Goldblum
Right.
gets his hand broken or whatever, which was such a weird scene. They're like playing patty cake, but then they're
I
playing this
know.
really weird over the top sound effect every time he like hit his hands, like he was like
Yeah.
breaking his hands when he was doing
And
it.
it
Was like
showed like they were like bruised or whatever.
the
after
most
the first
ridiculous
couple.
the most ridiculous scene ever, but like that kind of stuff, like you don't need to tell, like you're literally, it's like you're holding that baby spoon with the little rubber tip on it and you're spoon feeding it to us. Like you don't need to do that, screenwriters. You can just let the scene, let the narrative breathe and exist on its own.
Yeah.
I just thought the funniest thing about this too is because I was interested in this movie, you know, after I finished watching it, because I was just like, okay, let me learn a little bit more about this, and I read Ebert gave this like a 3.5-star review back in the day and was lauding the narration as this amazing thing, and like, I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
I got all the respect in the world for Ebert, but man, I disagreed with him big on some things, and that is one of them. It's so unnecessary, especially the way it's used in this film in a lot of the cases.
So you mentioned the kind of class symbolism that it was giving throughout especially as the film kind of goes on a little bit. How did it strike you? Because this came out in '92, obviously. We're seeing it in 2024. How did it strike you as a white dude, which we both are for the audio audience, by the way? But how did it strike you when they said, what's the difference between the N word and a black man? And that was a common theme throughout the movie that they kept asking and kept coming up. It comes up again at the very end of the film, too. Did that strike you like, whoa? Or did you just kind of like roll with it? Because it kind of surprised me a little bit the first time I heard it. I was kind of taken back a little bit.
I think it's meant to evoke that kind of response from you. To be 100% honest, I think they use that just in that kind of way. I mean, as a test, because they're trying to determine like who's going to be the best person to get undercover, and who's going to be able to actually survive and do this and bring down these kingpins and all that kind of things like that. So it wasn't super jarring for me or anything. Like it made in the way that being, you know, using racist language can make sense, I suppose. Like it made sense that they would use that to try to evoke a response, because you don't want to use that. Like, I mean, think about it just in terms of, and I'm not defending using the N-word here, people, okay? But like, think about it in the context of the film. You don't want somebody undercover who somebody's going to say something like that to them and they're going to fly off the handle or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's got to be something, and
How
I
do
feel
you
like it was a
react when I
test.
say this, right? Right.
Yeah, I feel like it was a test in that sense, to be like, we can't have somebody that's going to have a visceral reaction to this when we say this. Like one dude like reaches over the desk and like straight up grabs the dude. It's like, what'd you say to me? Like stuff like
So
that.
he's not going to get the job, right?
Yeah, I
Right,
think it made sense contextually in the film, but never stop it, people. Don't.
Yeah.
Also, you can
this
tell
was a-
this movie came
this
out in
was
the
a-
early '90s too, because like the gay slurs and everything like that, literally
They were flying.
everywhere.
were
Every
flying.
5 minutes, somebody's accusing somebody of being gay in this movie.
Well, what I was going to say too is this was
Derisively
right
so.
in that era too of like Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood and you know, a lot of those urban stories where the N word was thrown around every 10th word, you know, and
Yeah.
mother effer and effer this and everything. So it was in that same era, but this was a more straight laced like cop drama with kind of that stuff floating around in the background, but it was always kind of relevant.
Yeah.
The race relations, I felt like, and he's obviously a black cop who's been asked to do this deed that's very seedy and very, undesirable for really anybody, I would think, if you're anti-drug. I mean,
sure.
But he's looking at the larger thing, like, I have to do this to fix this problem. The lesser of the two evils. If I do this, I'm going to defeat the big bad. It's going to be tough now, but I'll be able to bring the big bad down. So we can kind of shift there to the second half of the film. And the problems I think you and I both have probably come in the second half of the film. It's more when John kind of gets that badge where he's in the high-rise penthouse now, and he's like, he takes Eddie's place as like the right hand to Jeff Goldblum's character, and he's like making all the big bucks, and drugs are flying around. And
what a character Eddie was. Yeah, I love that character.
Oh
that
man,
character
yeah,
was
he
so
was
good.
a fucking
I don't have. I pulled up the cast list on IMDb, and Eddie's not listed on it. It's probably somewhere in the full cast list. So I can actually look at that and find out who played Eddie here. Hang on, let me. I don't even know where. I don't even see him in there. Am I just blind? I'm serious. I really seriously mean this. I think I'm so old.
Roger Guinevere Smith.
Yeah,
Eddie.
like dude, so good. Such a great performance. He's so I mean, you talk about Goldblum chewing scenery in this movie. That dude's chewing so much scenery. It's ridiculous. I've never seen him in anything else. I don't recognize the name.
I just pulled up his IMDb. He's been in a couple Spike Lee joints, and he was in a Final Destination film. I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff. So.
Super good. I love that character. That character was so good.
Another thing that was funny about the villains in this movie, or the antagonists, if you will, is I thought the kind of mob bosses in the film that were above Goldblum, Felix and Guzman and those guys, like I felt they weren't very like menacing. Like they were kind of like, they weren't like Sopranos-esque. You know what I mean? They were very like kind of thin characters and older. You know what I mean?
This was like that pre-Sopranos kind of thing where when these characters are very simply, they're cartoon characters. Like they are cartoonish, like mob boss, like drug kingpin stereotypes. Like this is way before, your Breaking Bads and your Sopranos and all that kind of stuff where you get to see those much differently portrayed. Yeah, they're all cartoon characters. They're all ridiculous. It's like all these characters are written so stereotypically. I don't know. Are mob bosses like really upset about how they get portrayed in films? I don't know if they are or not.
I don't know.
I guess even Breaking Bad did that too, though, where it's like if you cross Don Eladio like even a little bit, he would fly off the handle at you. So it's like I don't know why all these people have like such a short fuse and they're so like distrusting of everybody. Like you'd think like their operations would go a lot smoother if they just chill the hell out for like a hot minute. Like they seem to get so pissed off about stuff like literally every second. Like you gotta chill, my dude. Like you gotta chill.
Well, when we get down to the climax of the film, I thought it was very interesting how. I want to ask your opinion, and I don't want to bury the lead too far here, but John goes through this transformation where he's the big wig, he's slinging all the money around, he's got the girl now, right? And he's kind of living his best life as a drug dealer, okay? But he's still a cop undercover trying to do the right thing. So there's a moment where in the film he realizes that the police is not going to have his back anymore. The cops aren't going to have his back. He's on his own if he wants to end this issue that he was hired to do. So he kind of goes rogue. And as a viewer and me watching it, I honestly thought, okay, that's the twist. The twist in the film is that he's going to do the deed and accomplish his goal by being a drug dealer and by getting the drugs out of that area, as opposed to being a cop and bringing down the people that are getting the drugs.
Right.
So I'm like, he's still accomplishing it by killing everybody, basically, but it's in a different method, right? Not in a police procedural method. And then we get to the twist with Goldblum at the end. How did this all play for you? Like him going bad. The elder cop, who we refer to as Reverend, kind of dies in his arms there at the end, and it's supposed to be emotional. But I never really I saw them having a connection to two of those characters. No, so that didn't really work for me. Yeah.
That dude's in like 2 scenes. Like
Yeah.
he's in literally like 2 whole scenes. Like they bust him early on, and he has like this really quick interrogation scene with him, and then he's like, well, first of all, the cop this is so funny to me, the sequence of events, because first the Reverend cop hits him when they do the bust, like just slugs him, and then gets him in the confession room, and then is sitting him down and being like, "Are you Christian?" It's like, I'm a Christian. I gotta atone for my actions. I'm sorry I hit you. And it's like, this is a microcosm of modern day Christianity. You can be as shitty a person as you want to be if you just ask for forgiveness afterward.
Yeah.
It's
I
literally
repent.
Christianity in a nutshell. I'm sorry for all you Christians out there. I was raised Catholic. I know how it is. I'm sorry too. So like, but that's like literally like you only get like 2 other scenes with that character after that, and you don't see him for like an hour of screen time after that. You don't see him for the longest time. So I don't buy this real emotional connection. There's a whole the sequence of events that takes place at the end of this film. First of all, it's like you said. Basically, he's too good at his job, basically, to where he's going to bring down this whole organization. He's going to bring down this corrupt, like, Latin politician who was funding his nephew and doing all this kind of stuff. And his boss is like, whoa, 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 whoa. State Department says, no, we got to back off because all of a sudden the government loves it and it's fine. And so that's when it's like you said, he goes rogue, which I liked him going rogue. But then the second he goes rogue, Gerald, he immediately, now again, we're told multiple times throughout this movie, this character has never taken a drink of alcohol in his life, never done drugs, never done anything bad because he witnessed his dad getting capped outside of a liquor store when he was like 10. Right. Okay? Right. So the first thing he does when he turns rogue, Gerald, is get drunk and do cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It came as so far out of left field, like so far out of character for me for him. Like, it's like you said, like, when he goes rogue, my whole idea was like, oh man, he's going to really put the screws to him. Like, he's going to basically be like, okay, I'm not a cop anymore. I'm going to go and I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring you down. Like, no matter what it is, like, I'm going to resolve this myself. And I loved that, but him immediately going and just like getting wasted, like first time ever, like you've never had another heartbreak in your life or any bad thing happen to you where you're just like, man, I want to hit a bottle so bad or something, like nothing, never. And you decide to do coke, like right out the gate.
I think he, because in that moment he took, the Captain Jerry's flask, and that was the first time he hit a drink, and he was like, oh, this is the first drink, it fucking tastes good or whatever, which was a great line. But I think the point was like he realized in that moment, I'm fucked, I'm on my own, you know, the police department's not going to have my back, I'm supposed to be a cop, what do I do now? Like, I'm out here living this drug life, all these people know who I am, like, you know, I have all this money to account for. So I get how the stress would have gotten to someone in that moment, but it wasn't earned in the film, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to really stop and kind of put yourself in that scenario for it to work for you. So I agree with you that it just happened way too quickly for him to kind of go down that path.
Automatically, like, I get the drinking from the flask thing. Whatever, just out of being upset and frustrated and stressed out, like you said, or whatever. But then, literally, the next scene is him just straight up doing coke off of the blade of a knife in his car. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, it was way too quick. It wasn't earned. It just didn't feel like a logical decision for that character to make in that moment. It felt kind of ridiculous. And then, Gerald, talk to me about the ending of the movie, because I got problems with this too.
So I want to discuss him and Goldblum's kind of farewell to each other at the end, too. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something else? Or are you talking about the courtroom stuff?
All of it? I mean, more so the courtroom stuff.
Okay, well, real quick, I did not... I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I didn't see John turning back to his cop mentality in that moment with Goldblum. Him and Goldblum were literally about to ride off into the sunset and be the fucking innovative masterminds of drug dealing on the West Coast. You know what I mean? And they made this huge deal with and you know, millions of dollars. Everything was. I was like, okay, you know, that was a twist. I mean, he gave up his cop life. That's how the movie's going to end. So I didn't see him kind of turning back into the moral good guy with the moral high ground. So that was another twist. That's the part of the sword that was dull, that didn't hurt me. But then what did hurt me was not buying it. Like I didn't see the connection with that old dude, the Reverend Cop. I didn't know how that would be the thing that would turn him. I mean, I know Goldblum was kind of a prick or whatever. It was kind of selfish, and I don't know. It just didn't work for me. And then we fast forward, and then he shoots Goldblum and kills him, David, and David's dead. There's a comment made that he may have removed some of the money from the red van that was there, so he had money. Fishburne took some money from that site.
He didn't take money from the van. They had already taken out, because it was like $100 million they sold or something like that. They had $80 million in the van, and they kept the other $20 million or whatever out for whatever their fake cocaine thing that they were going to do, that they wanted the dude to invest in.
Synthetic thing or whatever.
So they already had taken that out previously, and we never saw what happened to that money.
Oh,
we know
okay.
we know he
That's what they were
sold it
referring
and
to.
still had it though.
So we get to the LA courthouse or whatever. He's as an undercover officer has to testify about what happened in the operation. And Jerry, who's kind of the captain that nobody likes at this point, is like, look, man, all you have to do is just speak highly of me and of the department, and that it was all on the up and up, and it just went awry, but it had nothing to do with your superiors. And, if you do that, I'm going to let your girlfriend go free, which, by the way, she's being held captive now. If you don't do that, I'm going to have her brought up on all these charges, and she's going to be in jail for a long, long time. That's basically what it is. So John has his testimony, and he does that. He says, everybody was great. They gave me the mission, and I, gave me everything I needed to complete it. And then he has the videotape that one of Felix's dudes filmed at the docks, which kind of gives away the kind of seedy underbelly of the police's involvement in the whole thing, in the whole operation.
Yeah.
And kind of brings down the people that initially were hiring him to do this undercover gig.
Right, yeah.
And right? I mean, is that the best way to explain it? And then he kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, walks out into the sunset with his girlfriend holding her hand and gets one more shot in on Jerry. And then we once again get the black guy or the N-word question thrown at us at the very end. None of that worked for me, man. Like, it didn't feel like, let me put it this way. That didn't feel like the ending to this movie. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel like it fit with what we had been seeing.
You know what that was, Gerald? That was a heavy undercover narcotics cop drama with a fairy tale ending. That's what that was. Because it was literally like the fairy tale, like, oh, the cop's going to catch the bad guys, and all the bad guys are going to go down for it. He's going to reveal the whole truth to everybody, and everybody's going to bring him down. In reality, like, the reason why it doesn't play right to you is because once he screws over the Latin politician, like, number one, let me emphasize the problem that I have with this. They decide they're going to go to war with, like, literally all of Latin America by stealing this $100 million. It's two dudes. It's Jeff Goldblum, who is like whacked out of his gourd at this point because he's like on drugs and doing all this wild stuff. And it's
like
and
a
it's Lawrence
vampire by
Fishburne.
the end of it.
He does look like a vampire by the end. His hair gets progressively more slicked back. The
Yeah, it
longer
does.
The film goes on. It's really funny.
Black trench coats. Yeah,
it's really, really funny. But yeah, it's literally two dudes. Like, the thunder they would have brought down on them, like, even for killing the nephew. Like, that dude never would have shown up in person to do whatever. Like, literally, there would have been like an army of 10,000 like soldiers that are in this dude's employ, literally hunting those two across the face of the earth to find them. There's no way this dude's putting himself out there and exposing himself like to that degree. Like, that whole sequence of events, and then the fact that he blows the lid off of this whole thing at this trial with this videotape that God knows where this was even filmed from in the 90s with like a camcorder. But that's neither here nor there. But like this whole thing being filmed and him blowing the lid off of this whole thing, like this dude's he's not gonna be able to like escape to anywhere. He'd have to go live on an abandoned, uninhabited island somewhere to like escape from being like murdered by somebody.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, he just walked out with his girlfriend holding his hand. I mean,
just walked out holding hands, like big happy ending, like, oh boy, we sure got them crooks.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we got them.
It was
Yeah,
weird,
like
man.
maybe this was the
weird.
90s, like that 90s sentimentality of like, oh boy,
Sure.
the good guys are gonna get them and whatever. We're we're very pessimistic here in 2024, ladies and gentlemen.
I guess
Where
so. Yeah.
we see this whole thing, and like I said, the thing about it that kills me is like from the point where they kill Felix onward, and then they go up against the nephew. It's literally just the two of them. It's literally just them two, and they're going to war with like I said, like all these huge drug gangs and drug organizations, cartels, and all this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't pass the sniff test in a 2024 lens. Maybe it would have back in the day. Maybe like you said earlier, like what about if we had seen this movie back in the 90s? Maybe it would have made more sense then. But yeah, no.
What'd you
no,
think
it
about the?
Did not pass the sniff test.
What did you think about the Belinda James storyline? That was the Latino lady that lived across the hall from him, and he kind of befriended her son. She was a junkie. I thought that was thrown in there to humanize him a little bit more, but they didn't spend enough time on that either. They didn't spend enough time on that either.
Nope. She's in about 3 scenes. The scene where he first gets the hotel, and then she has this long tirade where she's like yelling at him about because he gives the kid money and it's like, no, go get real food. Because what did he have? He had ding dongs. Like that was his dinner. Like he had some chocolate ding dongs. Like, oh boy, yummy, yummy. And sent him like across the street to go get like actual food. And she has this whole tirade. And then the next time we see her, she's
tries
dead.
to sell him. Oh, I was going to say she tried to sell her son too. Remember?
Yeah,
She's
that's the thing.
I'll give him to you for $3,000.
Yeah, she tries to sell the kid to him, and then she's dead the next scene because she ODs, and so he decides he's just gonna adopt the kid. So now let me paint the picture for you, folks. Spoiler alert for a movie from 1992. But at the end of this movie, the former kingpin but also undercover cop who blows the lid off of the whole thing, Lawrence Fishburne, walks off into the sunset with his former money launderer. Victoria Dillard's great in this film as well. She plays the money launderer. She's fantastic. Love her as well. They walk off into the sunset and adopt this orphan. There's basically this kid who was orphaned because his mom was a drug addict. The end.
That's it.
Like I said, it's all
him.
so happy ending-ish.
Yeah, nobody's chasing him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, the deep cover must have worked. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he's going back under. He's going back in.
Never blow your cover. All right, so wrapping up on this thing, it's a 7 for me. It's a 6 from Nick. I did enjoy it. I just think it kind of carries that 90s
Fishburne's so good, dude.
aura with it.
Look,
But
nothing for nothing,
yeah.
but like the song is a banger too because like I guess that was
Yeah.
like one of Snoop's first ever tracks he was ever on.
Yeah, that
because it was
a good
Snoop and Dre. It was pretty tight track. It was pretty good. I enjoyed that
that's
too.
good shit,
This movie actually had a pretty banging like soundtrack the whole way through. I really enjoyed the music in this.
It did.
too.
It had
It's
a
an
really
enjoyable
weird
watch, and Lawrence Fishburne's great. He's really
It had a
great.
really weird opening credit sequence, though. I thought there was something wrong with my TV where it was doing the slow motion crack smoking or whatever. I was like,
And the funny thing about that scene is like I just thought that was a one-off thing, and then when 10 minutes later that actual scene plays out, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the okay.
All right, yeah,
Why
it
was
weird.
that the opening? Like, why was that
don't know.
specific bit the opening of the movie? I don't get why that was repurposed
idea.
for the opening in extreme slow mo. Super
idea.
weird.
Well, you know what? I'd watch this thing again, and it was an enjoyable watch, especially if you like those 90s kind of cop action films. And Lawrence Fishburne definitely carried the material. Jeff Goldblum was hamming it up, and he's always memorable. So the two of them did it for me, and it's a 7 for me, 6 from Nick. Deep cover from 1992. Guys, if you want to pitch movies at us on the roulette wheel, we'll spin it, and we'll pick your movie. Just get involved down below on Patreon, and you can subscribe over there for as little as $1 a month and throw a movie at us, and that's what Deep Cover was from our patron, Jason. We appreciate the pick, buddy, as
Thank
neither
you.
one of us had ever seen it, so that was great.
Thank you, Jason, for the pick, and thank you all to our amazing patrons who put money in Gerald's pocket. I again for the contract thing, beginning of the show, we're gonna talk about restructuring that thing now because he's multiple takes here, taking forever. Now he's yawning. He's so bored by me because I'm just talking at him. Man, it's
Wait a minute,
terrible.
what'd you say?
I'm also blowing the lid off of this for the audio audience. You're welcome.
Next week, Nick. Alien, Romulus. Directed by Fede Alvarez. Don't Breathe, Evil Dead remake. Love that guy.
I got no
I'm
faith. No faith. The last
interested
two
to
movies, the last two movies in this franchise were not good at all, whatsoever. So I am not one of my funniest ever. If you ever want to listen to something that's just great, way back in the EFG days, when did Alien, what was the last one? Alien Covenant? Was that it?
Yeah.
Whenever Alien Covenant came out, we had Caleb, who was Dan's co-host of Netflix and Swill, came on Epic Film Guys when we reviewed that movie. And literally, we just let him have the floor, and he gave like a 10-minute long tirade about the movie. So good. So good. One of my favorite memories ever back in the day.
By the way, we got to get Caleb to play Macho Man in the Ben Affleck Hulk Hogan film.
Ooh, yeah, can we...
There's a Macho Man. Get him and Liz to do it together. All right, well, that's it for this week.
Mega Powers reunited.
1992's Deep Cover, and we will return next week as we go back out to the theater to talk about Alien Romulus. Nick, I appreciate you, man. Now, don't go too far undercover this week because I need to be able to find you next Sunday. All right.
I'm going to be under the cover of a face hugger, and then the chest burster's going to come out and eat your face. Ah!